Hello, welcome back to Planning Your Picture Book. I'm excited to get started on week 3, which is all about pacing and breaking your story up into the spreads that you are eventually going to illustrate. So at this point you should have some idea about your characters, you should have some idea about the style you're working in and kind of where you want your story to go. But you really, this week, are going to dig into the manuscript and plan out each point in the story. Now, the format we're working with, you're going to get 16 spreads. So I'm going to give you this. This is going to be a guide for you as you move forward into your pacing and your planning out. But you cannot just take your manuscript and divide it into 16 paragraphs or 16, just say, oh, I have this much, I'll divide it by 16. It won't work like that. You need to pace out based on the story. So you need to find the most important moments and make sure you give them the time that they need in the story. And a way to do that in a picture book is by deciding how much real estate you give to each moment. By real estate, I mean literally how much of the book does that moment take up. So if you have a moment in the story that you want to be very important, you're going to give it more real estate. You're going to make it spread out over 2 pages. As opposed to a less important moment, you might give 1 page, and an even less important moment, you might give a little spot illustration, and other moments you might not show at all, because you can't show every moment in a story sometimes. So think about the moments that are most important to you in the story and that are most important to telling the story, and kind of star them out in the manuscript. Make sure that you have marked them so you know, I need to give this a lot of space. Then what I like to do is literally chop up the story with a pair of scissors so I can visualize the moments and how they're going to fit into the spreads. And I'm actually going to put a picture of this right here, and then I'll come back and talk about it. Okay, so you saw the picture of my manuscript all chopped up with numbers 1 through 16, and that gives me an idea of where I'm going to place them when I start sketching. So I numbered them 1 to 16 by spread. I didn't do individual pages, but I will eventually break up these into pages after I visualize each spread. So once you have your manuscript kind of chopped up, then you can take each number. So here is my chunk of text for spread number 1, and I'm going to actually sketch on here spread number 1, keeping in mind that this is the text I'm going to use. And I'm going to go through and do that for every chunk of text. I'm going to sketch it here. And these are really small sketches because at this point I might find that the way I chopped this up doesn't work. So I want to have the flexibility to change it around. So keep that in mind when you are in this phase, when you're sketching these little thumbnails. Make a couple copies of this and fix everything at this phase if it's not working. Because the last thing you want to do is have it not working and take it to final art and realize, oh my gosh, this doesn't work and I just did all that work. This is the phase where it's easy to move things around. You can make new sketches, you can, print the manuscript, chop it up again, all those things. So I do want to show you an example of where I've decided I might want to put a page turn in the text. So let me show you this. So this is around the end of the book. I have this marked as spread 12, and it says, and when the princess opened the door, the frog came in and slept on her pillow as before, till the morning broke. And the 3rd night he did the same. But when the princess awoke on the following morning, I would put a page turn there. We turn the page. She was astonished to see, instead of a frog, a handsome prince, gazing on her with the most beautiful eyes she had ever seen and standing at the head of her bed. So the page turn, that pause, and then, wow, it's a prince and not a frog. It's the big reveal. So the page turn kind of hides that reveal until you turn the page, and then it's like, ooh. So that's an example of a page turn. How you pace this story is going to be different than how I pace this story. I mean, this is where you get to add your creativity and your ideas and your thoughts. So there's no right way to pace the story. Everyone will do it differently. I do want to also talk about something that you get to do as an illustrator that's super fun and has to do with pacing, and that's the B story. So when you have a manuscript, of course you want to show everything in the manuscript, but as an illustrator you also can create a B story. And a B story is something that happens in the story that is not in the manuscript. So for example, perhaps there is a funny character in the background who is doing something the whole story, but he's never mentioned in the text. Or there's some interesting weather going on that's affecting the story, but you don't actually see it in the writing. You don't want to overwhelm the story with your B story, so you don't want it to be more important than what's in the text, but you can add color and flavor and your own flair through the B story. Sometimes illustrators will create a little character who shows up in every scene somehow, and he's like a little hidden secret. That can be really fun. Or perhaps, you know, in this story we're in a royal court. Perhaps there's a jester doing kind of funny things in the background. Again, we don't want to overwhelm our story, but this is your chance to add whatever you want to add to the story, and it can be really fun. So while you're breaking up the spreads, I want you to also think, if you want to add a B story, how you're going to add it, how it's going to resolve, how it's going to flow into the rest of the story, because that's really important. So once you have everything broken down into your pages, like I did here, I chopped up pieces of paper, and then you've got everything sketched out here, and you're feeling really good about the pacing, about everything, you will be ready to move on to your dummy. But I want you to keep in mind, when you are planning these little guys, these little individual pages, you will have to put text on there somehow. So keep in mind, if you have a full page, if you have a 2-page spread, how's the text going to work on there? There can be spreads with no text, but that's going to push your text onto other pages. So keep that in mind when you're planning. You want to, I sometimes will sketch sort of if it's a big block of text, I'll put in a little square so I have an idea of how that's going to work. Remember, you can have an image on the page with the text underneath with a white background or a black background. You can have vignettes, those little sketches. Sometimes they're done in 3s, and the text in between. That's another fun way to break it up. You want to look at your planning and see a sort of flow. You don't want every single spread to be the same, unless that works for the story. You probably want some 2-page spreads, and then you want some spreads that have vignettes, and then you want some that are close up, and you want some that are far away. Sort of like when you watch a movie, most times everything is not from the same angle and, you know, the same kind of shot. There's close-ups, there's far away shots. All these things you're going to start percolating in your head. I'm going to grab one of my over here. So here's an example of something I was working on. Just putting in basic ideas for a story, and when you're like this, you can really see, you know, you get a bird's eye view of what's happening in your story. And you know, I make mistakes, I cross them out, I put new ones in. You can cut them out, tape over. Once you have this, you have an overview of your book. This is going to be really helpful for you. So hopefully you can get this finished in the next week or 2, and then we will move on to making the actual dummy, which is super fun and a ton of work, but you're going to love it. So that is all for today. I can't wait to see what you make, and if you have questions, you can send me an email, and happy bookmaking. Have a great day. Bye-bye.